So welcome back to Academic Plug. So in this video we're going to go through a grade 8 history 2024 term 3 paper for the revision for the coming exam in term 3 2025, right? So for those who are skeptical about uh the scope that was used to set this question paper that we're going to go through, which you can see on my left side of the screen. So the scope that was used for that paper in 2024 is the same scope that is going to be used for the exam that you guys are going to write in 2025 term 3, right? So being able to answer questions on this question paper will allow you to answer questions that are coming in term 3 exam, right? So the scope is based on changes during the Industrial Revolution in Britain, Southern Africa before 1860, diamond mining in Kimberley from 1867 onwards, and then revision and formal assessments, right? But if you want to see the subheadings of these main topics on the scope, you can use the link in the description. Then that's where you'll be able to see the subheading and the full details about the scopes, right? And the link to this page is also in the description. That's where you'll be able to download this question paper that we are going through, right? So without wasting any more time, but first, let's take a look at a few educational tools that can be useful to currently a lot of you guys use these tools, but some of you may not know about them. So we have put together over 200 history exam questions for grade 8 students, right? Strictly for term 3. So as you saw the scope, right? So we take everything from the scope and we take all the questions papers that you guys have ever, or rather grade 8 students in term 3 have ever written, right? Then we put them in one place and explain them, right? So there will be questions, answers, and explanations, right? Which are strictly for term 3. So we do this for all the terms, term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4. So we have gathered all these 200 questions to help you guys be able to answer the questions that are coming, right? So you'll find that there's like 50 questions based on changes during the Industrial Revolution in Britain. I had over 100 questions based on the Southern Africa before 1860, you know. So the questions are very spot on in terms of, you can ask yourself, would they help you answer term 3 questions that are coming in 2025?
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Yes, right? And they're not just questions and answers, there's full explanations. So it really does wonders for a lot of students who use these questions to practice. So we do our best to keep on increasing the number of questions that are there. But as far as right now, you can simply go ahead and practice. And by the time you go through any term 3 question paper, you will realize that a lot of things you have covered through these questions, right? So we also have notes which you'll be able to download. The link is in the description. Notes that are basically for term 3 only, right? So in case some of you may lose your notes, some of you also, since we know some of you guys, some of you guys do not write notes, right? So some of you may have lost them, but then the notes that we have are enough for you to pass that exam, right? So before we actually delve into the questions, we also have a tutoring program in which for $50 you can get a tutor for history, for mathematics, for natural sciences, only for $50 per month, right? So this means you don't have to pay extra if you want a tutor for maths and history and any other subjects that we have listed there, right? So the link to the tutoring program is also in the description. So with that said, we also have a game, guys. All right. I know this is like taking some time before we delve into the questions. So this game is based on the history subject. So it's based on term 3 stuff, right? So we have a couple of games, right? So we have games that are based on what you guys are learning, your scope, everything, even things that you are going to write, because this is not like a separate thing. So this game is called Plug the History, and it's all about history. And we ask you guys a lot of questions in this game, and you're able to have some sort of storyline where you're able to choose between or doing one thing and the other, but you will understand this or you will get what I'm saying when you actually play the game, right? So it's available on the Plug app that we have, right? So you can just simply download it. It's available for iOS, Apple, and Android users, and also PC users. So without wasting any more time, so let's delve into the questions, right? So question 1 says is based on the Scramble for Africa, which is a case study about the Ashanti kingdom, right? So we have source A here. The source below explain how trade led to the annexation of the Ashanti Empire by the Europeans. Okay, so we're given a context. So it says the Ashanti Empire was a pre-colonial West African state that emerged in the 17th century in what is now Ghana. The Ashanti or Asante were an ethnic group of the Akan-speaking people and were composed of small chiefdoms. In some ways, the empire grew out of the wars and dislocations caused by Europeans who sought the famous gold deposits, which gave this region its name, the Gold Coast. The Asantehene made Kumani the capital of the new empire. He also created a constitution, reorganized and decentralized the military, and created a new cultural festival, Odwira, which symbolizes the new union. Most importantly, he created the golden stool, which he argued represented the ancestors of all the Ashanti. Gold was the major product of the Ashanti Empire. Osei Tutu made the gold mines royal possessions. By 1800, the trade had shifted to the south, and the Ashanti sought to meet the growing demand of the British, Dutch, and French for captives. The consequence of this trade for the Ashanti and their neighbors was horrendous. Between 1823 and 1873, the Ashanti Empire resisted British encroachment on their territory. By 1874, however, British forces successfully invaded the empire and briefly captured Kumasi. The Ashanti rebelled against British rule, and the empire was again conquered in 1896. After yet another uprising in 1900, the British deposited and exiled the Asante and annexed the empire into their Gold Coast colony in 1902. Okay, so that was hell of a context, right? I'm sure you guys have done a lot of these uh historical event. I'm sure you have the notes, but it's also there on our notes as well, right? So where we actually explain it in some sort of a story, which is also there on the Fuck the History game, right? So you might as well learn as you play. Okay, So 1.1, identify in the source the language spoken by the Ashanti or Asante. So for those of you who may also not, or maybe you are new to the academic plug tribe, so here we use CAPS AI to make sense of the questions and the answers, right? So as you can see for 1.1, the language spoken by the Ashanti is Akan, right? The explanation says the source states that the Ashanti were a subgroup of the Akan speaking people. So this was within the context, right? But basically, we use CAPS AI to make sense of the questions that we go through because it really does a good job in sort of bridging that knowledge gap. Because I mean, you will realize that a lot of questions papers are just questions and answers, and you might wonder why is it why is that answer the actual answer, right? What's the reason? So CAPS AI comes to the rescue and help us make sense of the answer, or as to why is that particular answer the answer for that question, right? So you can also use it to do your homeworks, your assignments, pretty much anything academic. It's really that genius friend who you can rely on, right? For assignments, for homeworks, and anything, even if you want to ask questions. And you might not actually not need a tutor when you have this, right? But the link is in the description and we'll also teach you how to use it, right? Okay. So that was the language that was used. Let's get back to the other question. The following question. Okay, 1.2. Explain why the Ashanti Empire grew out of war and dislocations. Hold on. I mean, these are the questions that we're still going to delve into, right? So, I'm sure you know who this guy is, right? Holding a gun. Oh man, this is like the watch. What is this? Below depicts. Sorry for digressing, right? But Asante warrior queen. Okay, so she was a warrior queen. She's dripping way too hard, ain't it? With a gun. Oh man. Anyways. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the answer. 1.2. The Ashanti Empire grew out of war and dislocations caused by European demand for gold, right? So from the source, explain that European interest in gold deposits led to conflicts, which disrupted local chiefdoms and contributed to the formation of the Ashanti Empire. So that's the reason why we were given a context for this question, right? So that we can sort of pick the answer there. Okay. 1.3. Define the term constitution. 2 points. I mean, 1.3. A constitution is a set of fundamental principles or rules according to which a state is governed, right? In the source, the Asante Hene created a constitution to unify and organize the Ashanti Empire, right? So basically for these questions, you're not asked to explain, right? It's only that we are using CAPS AI for the explanations, but as far as the marks and the question that was asked, you guys are required to simply give answers to what you are asked, right? Yeah, unless they state explain, right? Then you will sort of reference the context, right? just like what we saw Caps AI do there for the answer and the actual explanation that it gave, right? Because I'm trying to have you guys not be confused by this. Just to quickly show you. So 1.2, it was an explanation that they asked for, right? But then the explanation which was given by Caps AI is simply us now making sense of why the Ashanti grew out of war and dislocation caused by the demand for gold, right? So I hope you're not confused by that. And the question will clearly state that explain, right? So I guess that's where now you will have to reference the context, right? Okay, so let's come to 1.4. According to the source, what was the name of the new cultural festivals? So this question is directly asking you, according to the source. It's not only that you are now being asked to refer to the source, you've all along have been required to refer to the source, right? Especially for those of you who may have not went through the note or studied, the context will become very essential for you. Because I think for the first answer, it was stated on the context, the language that was spoken by the Ashanti or Asante people, right? In the source. But it's just that you have to, before I digress, all right, I just want to show you something. Okay, the Akan, right? It was stated in the context that the Ashanti, right, were a subgroup of the Akan speaking people, right? So you can leverage that, right? Okay, so 1.4 is what we're doing next. Okay, before I actually digress. 1.4, okay. According to the source, what was the name of the new cultural festivals? Okay, so this is the question that I did mention that you are directly being asked to refer to the context, right? So the name of new cultural festival was Odwira. The explanation says the source mentions that the Asantene created Odwira as a new cultural festival symbolizing unity, right? Yep. So let's come to 1.5. We are still going to go to that man sitting on I think it's a golden chair or something. That man who's wearing the yellow. Since we have identified our dripping lady,
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
right, with the gun. Okay, 1.5. Using the source and your own knowledge, explain why the gold stool was important for the Ashanti people. Keyword alert. Using the source and your own knowledge. Okay? Your own knowledge does not necessarily mean what you're thinking about it. It's referring to the notes, right? But then we are given a context. So you're supposed to combine the two to give an answer. Okay. The golden stool was important because it represented the ancestors and the unity of the Ashanti people, right? That was the importance of the golden stool. That it represented, it was stated on the context as I read it, right? So, according to the source, it symbolized the soul of the nation and was regarded as sacred. So, that was the reason why it was important. So, that's question 1. Now, let's come to question 2. Okay. Study source 2A and answer the following the questions that follow. The source below explains the reason why Yaa Asantewaa, the Ashanti mother, queen, addressed the leaders of the Ashanti, right? Okay, so we're given a context here. Okay, it says after the deportation of Prempeh I, the British Governor General of the Gold Coast, Frederick Hodgson,
Stop it. Get some help.
I'm sure I'm pronouncing it right, demanded the golden stool, the symbol of the Asante nation. This disrespectful request
Put some respect on my name. You understand me? When y'all saying my name, put some respect on.
led to a secret meeting of the remaining members of the Asante government at Kumasi to discuss how to secure the return of their king. There was a disagreement on how to bring them back, and also some of them were reluctant or unwilling to carry on fighting the British. Yaa Asantewaa, who was present at this meeting, stood up and addressed the members of the council with these famous words. Now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for your own king, for our king, okay, to fight for our king. If it were in the brave days of Osei Tutu, Okomfo Anokie, and Opoku Ware, chiefs would not sit down to see their king to be taken away without firing a shot. No European could have dared speak to chiefs of Asante in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the bravery of Asante is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this. If you, the men of Asante, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight the white men. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefield. With this, she took on the leadership of the Ashanti uprising in 1900, gaining the support of some of the other Ashanti nobility. Hence, it was the Yaa Asantewaa who realized resistance in defense of the golden stool, the sacred symbol of unity of the Asante people. 2.1. Who, according to the source, was the British governor of the Gold Coast? We just read about that guy, right? Yeah. The British governor of the Gold Coast was
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Frederick Hodgson. Hodgson. Okay. I'm sure I'm pronouncing it right, alright? But if I'm incorrect, please let me know in the comments. Yeah, that was the guy, right? The main target. 2.2. Why, according to the source, was the secret meeting held? The secret meeting was held to discuss how to secure the return of their king. The members of the council were concerned after the king had been deported. So he was deported. 2.3. Using the source and your own knowledge. Again, this one wants us to go through the source and the notes that we have, right? Okay. Explain why Asantewaa was formed or was forced to address the members of the council. Asantewaa was forced to speak because the male chiefs were reluctant to fight and she wanted to encourage resistance. Her words show frustration with the chiefs' fear and hesitation to defend their kingdom. Says Caps AI, right? Okay. 2.4. Explain why Asantewaa meant by the words, the bravery of Asante is no more. The bravery of Asante is no more meant that the chiefs had lost their courage, unlike their ancestors who defended the kingdom. So Asantewaa felt that the current generation of leaders had become cowardly. Right, so let's come to 2.6. Okay. Where is this 2.6? 2.4? What was 2.5? 2.6. Okay, this is 2.6. So the lady, the drip lady, right? So source 2B. Okay, so these first questions were based on source 2A. Now we have source 2B here. The photograph below depicts Yaa Asantewaa, the Asante warrior queen, who contributed immensely to the fight of the Ashanti independence against the British colonial rule. Man, she was tripping way too hard, you know what I'm saying? Hey, man, all the respect to her. She's an OG, right? Some of you would say. Okay, so the question comes here. Compare sources 2A and 2B. Explain how the evidence in source 2B information. Okay, I want to read this correctly. Compare source 2A and 2B. Explain how the evidence in source B, which is this one, information in source 2A, which is the first source that we read through, supports the evidence in source 2B regarding Ashanti people's resistance against the British rule. So we're being asked to take this context, this source, and see how it supports this second source, right? So let's see what the answers are. Source 2A shows Asantewaa speaking boldly and leading the fight, proving, the Ashanti resisted British control. So it shows how Ashanti resisted British control, right? Since we did read about that brave woman standing up on behalf of the people, right? To say they will fight until, right? So source 2B shows her image as a warrior queen. visually confirming her leadership and bravery. So both sources reinforce each other. Source 2A provides the story, and source 2B the visual proof of her role in resisting colonization, right? So that's it about question 2. So was that question 2? Still question 1, I think. Okay, it was question 2. Yeah, not question 1. All right. So let's come to question 3. So, question 3. Study source 3A and answer the questions that follow. Source 3A. This photograph shows the Asante Hene Osi Tutu, the 16th Asante Hene, king of the Ashanti. He was celebrating the 10th anniversary with great ceremony in Kumasi in 2009. Today, the Ashanti royalty continues to have a place in the Republic of Ghana. So this is Osi, or rather Asante Hene Osi Tutu. Okay, there he is, draped in gold, right? The hands on the chair, yeah, dripping too hard. Man, I'm starting to think the Ghanaians, or rather people of that time, used to drip way harder than we drip today, right? I mean, today we only drip in Nike and, yeah. They used to drip way harder back then, right? Okay, 3.1. Explain the message conveyed by this photograph. There it is, right? So let's see the answer. The photo shows that Ashanti royalty and tradition still exist and are respected today, right? Even though Ghana is a republic, traditional leaders like the Asante Hene are still honored. 3.2. Using the source and your own knowledge / notes, the link is in the description. What do you think the celebration was important for the Ashanti people? The celebration was important because it reminded the Ashanti people of their cultural heritage, unity, and pride. The explanation says it keeps the legacy of their past alive and strengthens community identity, right? Okay, so those all the questions for question 3? Uh, yeah, okay. Those were all the questions for question 3. Now let's come to question 4. Question 4. European colonization of Africa in the late 19th century. 4.1. Write a paragraph about 8 lines, about 80 words, explaining the economic reasons for Europe to colonize Africa. So this is the paragraph, right? But then basically the key points that, okay, because as you can see the paragraph, I mean, I don't think a lot of you will write the same thing, right? So, and also the marker is not expecting you guys to write the exact same thing, because they might think you're cheating. So what's important is being able to include key points in your sentences, right? So the key points which are supposed to include in your paragraph, right, is anything related to the search for raw materials, right? Africa had valuable resources like gold, rubber, cotton, and minerals, right? So you're basically supposed to write anything that talks about this raw materials, right? That the interest of the colonizers, right, was about raw materials, right? So another point is new markets, right? Your one of your points is supposed to touch about on new markets, right? Europe needed markets to sell its manufactured goods. Till, till to this day, by the way, I mean, a lot of products that we use are from Europe, but a lot of them are made in China, you know? Yeah. But basically, a lot of things that we consume are manufactured in other countries, right? And most probably, um, the European countries are mostly the branding part of it. I mean, for example, the iPhone, right, is a American product, which is branded by the Americans, but then is manufactured in China, then it, finds its way to Africa so that you and I can use it, right? So that's basically what still to this day remains true, right? Okay. The third point should indicate cheap labor because even if they reached a point where slavery wasn't necessarily as in slavery, people were basically just being paid very little, right? To almost nothing. It's like they only work for food and shelter, something like that, right? So another point is supposed to include something about investment opportunities because, I mean, talking about mining, right? If they invest in mining here, then that means they'll be able to extract the very raw materials, right? So your points should also be related to each other in that way, right? So investment opportunity. Africa offered profitable areas for European investment. So they were also, I mean, they were selling things here and also extracting things here from here to other countries as well, right? So that was the case. Okay. Another point should talk about industrial revolution. So European industries needed resources to continue growing, right? And the other points should include economic competition. European nations competed for wealth and power through African resources. That's true. Okay. So when you write your paragraph, it need not be exactly the way it looks here, but then keywords are really important. And when your teachers mark, right, they are looking for these keywords. So when you write anything, make sure that it's tied to a keyword which is relevant, right? Which you cannot do without, I mean, if you didn't study or read the notes, how are you going to come up with these keywords, right? So we include this in our notes, right? So make sure to get the notes. The link is in the description where we also explain this in detail, right? All right. So let's come to question 5. So question 5 is going to be about an essay question, okay? So your essay should be about 1 page long. So 4.1, colonization had an overwhelming negative impact on African societies. Do you agree with the statement? Support your argument with relevant historical evidence. So we have a cramming assistant, which I want to show you guys this cool tool, which, I mean, since you guys are in grade 9, you are gonna be doing a lot of cramming, right? So let me show you how this tool works. So you want to cram that long essay, right? So what do? Here's the actual essay. So it's right here, right? So this is the essay, right? The heading is Colonization had an overwhelming negative impact on African societies. Agree, right? Then the essay goes on. So you guys may not necessarily cram this exactly the way it is, which is the point that I was making earlier, right? But your teacher, whoever is marking your essay, is looking for keywords. These are the keywords, right? These are the keywords that you should include in your essay. I'm trying to show you using this first point, right? So it talks about loss of sovereignty and arbitrary borders. So the points here are highlighted, as in they will be bold text, right? Let's read the first paragraph. Then I'll show you what I'm talking about. Colonization undeniably had an overwhelming negative impact on African societies with long-lasting effects that continue to shape the continent today. While some argue that colonial rule brought certain developments such as infrastructure and Western education, this came at the expense of African autonomy, cultural heritage, economic stability, and human dignity. Okay, one of the most, that was the introduction, right? Which you're supposed to write when writing an essay. Now let's get to the body of the essay, right? Which is not the first sentence, but the second sentence. That's where the body starts, right? Because also for the conclusion is right there at the bottom. And then above it is the body, right? So let's read the body. One of the most significant negative impacts was the loss of sovereignty. European powers carved up Africa during the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1855 without any African input. Okay, so let's reread this point because this is what I want to show you actually with regards to the cramming assistant. So it says European powers carved up Africa during the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 without any African input. Berlin Conference of 1884. So when you come to write your essay, alright, so what I'm gonna do is come here and press on the typing area. So since I'm using an Android, so a lot of you might be familiar with this keyboard layout, but the important feature here which is gonna allow you to do this effectively is the voice to text feature, right? So on my top right, there's this icon with a little mic. So I'm gonna press that. Then when I say the essay out loud, then it's gonna convert my voice into actual text of words, you know. So, and I think this is available for iOS users and pretty much any other smartphone there is, right? I mean, in 2025, I think all the phones do have this feature. And obviously for Android users, since I'm also using an Android, this is also available for PC users. Some TVs also have this feature. So this is the feature that's gonna make it easy for you, right? Because I mean, imagine having to write this essay over and over again instead of just saying it out loud. Then you go ahead and check if it's accurate and how many marks you got, right? So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna say the Berlin sentence because there is a key word there which is gonna be marked, right? Because basically that's what the marker is looking for, keywords, right? You can write whatever you want, but then it has to be in supportive of the key words, in which one of the keywords that we saw there on the essay is the Berlin Conference 1884 to 1885, right? That is what the actual mark is looking for, and that is what the essay cramming assistant is looking for in your sentences, right? So let's check it out. Okay, I'm gonna press this button, then I'll say that sentence out loud, right? Okay, let's do that. One of the most significant negative impacts was the loss of sovereignty. European powers carved up Africa during the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885 without any African input. Okay, so since I'm done, I pressed that icon again on the top right so that it can stop, right? So the next thing that we're gonna do is to come here and check how accurate we are so far, right? So I'm gonna press check accuracy. Okay, so it is indicating there that so far I have 1.5 mark over 20 marks, right? And my accuracy so far is 35%. So the accuracy is basically gonna be 100 when you have included all the keywords that are gonna be marked in your essay, right? Because that is what the actual teacher or marker is looking for, keywords. It's just that the rest has to be in supportive. It has to make sense in order for the keywords to be correct in that manner, right? Because you need not write it exactly the way I wrote it here. You can just pretty much style it in your own way or write it in the way that you understand, but the keyword which is going to be marked by your teacher and by the cramming assistant is the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885. So the only important thing that you have to do is that your sentence has to make sense, right? That's the only job you guys have to do because, I mean, like I said, this is a lot of information that you may not necessarily cram all of it, right? So the thing you can do, the trick is to cram the keywords because that's what your teacher and your markers look for when they read your essays, right? So you can pretty much do this for the rest of the sentences. And yeah, these are the keywords that you have to include in your essay. The Berlin Conference 1884. And you know, because for this one, since it was how many marks? 1.5. So 1 mark was for Berlin Conference, and half mark was for this 1884 to 1885, right? Which are also on the essay. I mean, since you can see here, Berlin Conference of 1884 2, in between is a 2, right? Not that line which was here on the essay. I'm sure you can see it at the top right there, on the top left. So that's how it was written on the essay. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to write it exactly how it looks there. But the most important thing is the keyword Berlin and the years, whether you write 2 or you write that line in between, whatever the case may be, as long as you can indicate that from 1884 to 1885, then your teacher will mark you right, and also the cramming assistant will mark you right? The most important thing is to make sure that your essay makes sense with the keywords, right? So this is an important trick, by the way. A lot of you might think you have to cram everything, right? Listen, what you have to cram, and this applies to all the subjects, is key words. Not the whole paragraph, not the whole essay. If you cram this, right? This right here, right? And you go to write an exam and you make sure that you include these keywords in your essay, listen, that's 100%. You'll get 20 marks, right? You will even get 20 marks on the cramming assistant, and you will also get 20 marks in the exam, right? And Also, there's hints here which I didn't talk about yet. So the hint feature actually helps you remember which keywords are you missing, right? So the following keyword here, it will give you the first letter of the keywords that you are missing in your essay, right? So AB, right? AB, artificial borders, right? Can you see it? AB, right? A is the first letter for the word artificial, and B is the first letter of the word borders, right? Same applies for the rest of the keywords. All the keywords are highlighted. All the keywords that are highlighted here under the key point from the essay are all the keywords that need to be in your essay, right? These ones which are not bold, they're not necessarily keywords that should be there in your essay. They're just sort of descriptive. Or okay, when you talk about economic exploitation, include the keywords forced labor, plantations, mines, infrastructure. Here under the Berlin, the Berlin Conference is one of them. Artificial borders is also one of them. Post-independent conflicts, Rwanda, Nigeria, mentioning those countries is under the post-independent conflict, right? In which you're only required to mention these countries that were affected about the post-independent conflict, right? Then, when you make it sense on your essay, as you write your sentences, you include those keywords, you come and write it here, it's gonna mark you, right? For each keyword, and it's gonna tell you how accurate you are as far as the complete essay, right? And when you feel like you're forgetting some keywords, you will simply press hint, then you'll come down here and see which ones you're missing, if you don't want to actually see them, because this is after you have crammed them, right? Or when you after you have tried to cram them, then now you just want to recall, right? So you cannot, if you also want to test yourself, how good can you recall? I mean, initial letters are enough for you to say, oh, okay, AB, I forgot AB, okay, AB, 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 artificial borders, right? Then you go ahead and write it on your essay cramming assistant, right? So this is the tool that we've put together for you guys. Make sure to use it, and it's really easy. I mean, back in the day when I was still in high school, I would take more than 30 minutes just trying to cram one sentence. Imagine, right? Because I was cramming wrong, right? I was doing it the wrong way, and nobody was there to teach me that, hey, even the marker doesn't want you to cram the whole thing as it is. They're just looking for keywords, right? So these are the keywords, and if you want to learn more about cramming, by the time you watch this video, there will be a video basically talking about how to get distinctions by cramming keywords, right? Because trust me, the students who are getting the distinctions, they're not cramming the whole book. This is how they cram essays easily, right? Keywords, keywords, keywords. So I have a whole video which is gonna teach you guys how to cram keywords. And the same applies when you're using the cramming assistant, right? So this should allow you to get a distinction. Trust me, this is no joke. I mean, myself, right, in varsity, I used the strategy, which is not necessarily about keywords, but it works anyways, right? And the strategy that I used got me distinctions for the modules that I was doing in university. Listen, I topped my whole class I think I got like 93 for this one module. So I'll teach you guys how to cram, right? And mind you, I was not a genius. Listen, when I was in grade 10, I got 0. I used to get a 0. My whole class would laugh. Now, distinctions, right? What changed? I'm not a genius. I don't cram everything. I have a method that I use. So I'm going to teach you that method, which you will use because there's a place for keywords and there's also a place for this strategy that I'm talking about. And I'll give you a hint on what it's basically about. So, have you seen how you cram music videos, music lyrics, songs in general? You hear one song, the next thing is stuck in your head. You remember every single lyric, right? Why is that? Why can't you? How is it the same mind able to cram a song and not able to cram academic stuff? And I'll tell you what the difference is. The difference is you guys are trying to cram a bunch of text. Listen, texts are only black or black ink or even blue ink, right? But as far as you're concerned, you're just looking at a bunch of texts that are black or blue, right? So, bringing a definition that you're trying to cram, bringing a sentence that you're trying to cram in some sort of a visual aspect, right? If you can attach some visual aspect to the Berlin Conference, right, it will be harder for you to forget it. It will be very hard for you. This is how I got my distinctions in university, and this is how you're gonna definitely get your distinctions in high school, which will allow you to get enough APS, because since you guys are in grade 9, you are going to get distinctions using this method, and it's going to allow you to go and study whichever course you want. Whether they want to be a doctor, whether they want you to get distinctions, you will have those distinctions simply because of you learned how to cram the right way. A lot of you just need guidance, so I'm going to offer you this guidance. By the time you watch this video, there'll be a video on my on academic plug channel talking about how to cram, right? Make sure to watch it, and make sure to watch it before you go write the exam, right? And that's pretty much it from this video, from this revision. And make sure to subscribe, right? Because we are going to post other revision videos for other subjects. So that's it for history. And make sure to subscribe because we are gonna drop other revision for other subjects like natural sciences, technology, pretty much all the other subjects that you guys do. So make sure to subscribe to get notified when we also post the term 4 revision videos, right? So make sure to subscribe and make use of the educational resources, right? The tools that we've given you guys. I mean, not to forget the game, right? Plug the history. You can basically play this game on your way to school, and you by the time you get to school, you will have crammed a bit more. That you find that when you get in class, you actually have answers for what's being taught for term 3, right? So this game is all about your term 3 curriculum, the scope, so you can go ahead and download the academic plug app. Then you'll be able to download this game, right? And also on the plug app and also on the website academicplug.co.za, we have question papers for all the grades, right? So that's where you'll be able to download other question papers as well. But as far as this revision, thanks for watching, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you on another revision video. All right. So good luck on your exams for term 3, and I wish you all the best. Get those distinctions, and yeah, life should be good after that, right? All right. Cheers.